Hey guys, the new Cryptopsy record was released today. I've listened to it twice, and as you can imagine, I have some thoughts on it. Prior to listening to it, I did check out a couple of reviews on YouTube, which, as you can imagine, were just brimming with glowing praise. I'm not here to be a contrarian, I'm here to be a realist about what I heard. And what I was most reminded of when I listened to the record was uh, the most recent Morbid Angel album, which I think at this point came out in like 2017. It was pretty old, but Morbid Angel prior to that record had put out a really shitty album, and they decided to try to overcompensate for that by putting out a very, very forcibly aggressive record. And if I don't think it's an awful record, I'm never going to reach for it in favor of anything else they've done except for that record. But it was obviously them trying to prove that they still had some of that youthful exuberance and some of that the aggressive approach of the earlier records, but it felt very forced. And if you tried to look for depth in the record beyond the aggression, it really wasn't there. There's a couple of noteworthy parts on the record, but it was ultimately a forgettable experience. And that's what I got out of this one, which makes it an average record at best. But that's not what I really want to talk about in relation to this album. Um, Listening to this made me realize that this band is now fully been co-opted by AI. And if you think about what AI is, it's a compilation machine. It cannot produce new ideas. What it can do is go through its database of what it understands the prompts to what you're trying to create are, and it will regurgitate a Frankenstein monster of what those ideas can maybe represent without understanding the soul of what you're asking for. And ever since Christian Donaldson joined the band and took over as what I imagine to be the main songwriter, that is what I'm hearing. I think that he understands the assignment now, and especially after what he put together for the last record, which I thought was probably the most serviceable post Mike DeSalvo material. I don't think it's a good record. I'm not going to reach for it, but it tried to concentrate on songwriting, which is something Cryptopsy hasn't been known for, having a skill in that since the 90s, early 90s. But it tried to develop themes within the songs. I'll give it credit for that. It was ultimately forgettable. I still can't shake the fucking deathcore vibes of the approach of the band since Christian Donaldson joined. The self-titled one, I didn't get it as much because I think John Lavoisier wrote all of that record. Maybe, I can't remember. But this one especially, I will commend them for putting out 30 minutes of material 2 years after the most recent record, because normally they take a very long time before they can produce anything. But what's going on this record is ultimately self-referential. It's like they understand what the fans think Cryptopsy should sound like, and they grab the most vague ideas of that, make sure they vomit it forth in the most aggressive and fast way they can, and call it a day. And I recently stumbled across a video from Christian, the guitar player, called "The Riffs That Taught Me," and I think this shined a lot of light on his approach. It was the idea was give your three riffs that maybe taught you the most about how you should approach metal guitar. And the first one he listed was Ministry's TV2, which I was actually very excited to hear, because I remember when I was a kid, I heard Psalm 69. That song in particular was it blew my mind at the time. I was very young, but it's clearly a sampled guitar single pick that's multiplied to make it appear that it's tremolo picked, because the speed of it is, you can do it, but it's not going to sound like it does on the record. It's deliberately chopped up, and they're an industrial band. It's deliberately chopped up to have all of the attacks of the pick give the same exact type of feel. So it's not supposed to feel human. It's supposed to be very fast and mechanical. So I guess you could say they were doing Rings of Saturn 30 years beforehand with the editing abilities. But I remember hearing it as a kid. You know, you want to tell yourself they're actually playing that because it's cooler that way. And TV2, that riff, it just cemented itself in my head as a very, very fast, crazy riff. But it's still not a riff I would cite as what taught me. If I was going to say a riff that taught me that isn't a similar vibe, I would probably go with Sepultura's Beneath the Remains. When I was a kid, that got me to get the stamina in the right hand. If you try to play through that record, it's fucking brutal. And then he moves on to cite a Limp Bizkit song as featuring a riff that taught him, which I don't need to talk about that. Anybody, if you're watching this channel, you know why that's a ridiculous statement to make. Regardless of how innovative you could say Wes Borland is, I have no familiarity with what he's done aside from what has been played on the radio. I'm sure he's very good. He's still in Limp Bizkit. Don't need to talk about it. And then he cited a Pantera song from Vulgar Display of Power, which it's a lot of chromatic stuff, which will get your foot in the door of death metal. But it's a pure groove. So the reason he cited Wes Borland to go back on that was because it was based on using the whammy bar to create your riff. So it was a novelty riff. He looked at and if you look at all three of these examples, you have speed, mechanical speed. You have the chromatic aspects with groove, very focused on groove in the Pantera song, and then you have the novelty approach of centering your riff around whammy bar dives. And I could see why, if you're driven by that, if you're excited by that, you would be driven to approach a band like Cryptopsy, who's known for having a lot of speed, having groove occasionally, and having some novelty parts here or there that are a little bit of an earworm where you're going to be like, I want to rewind that. What the fuck just happened? I get it, but he's still missing like the heart and soul of what makes the band what it is, dating all the way back to the demos. Like, it's not there. There's elements here on this record where I can hear it sounding like Cryptopsy, where it sounds especially like Whisper Supremacy, where you have the hyperblast over just chromatic shifting of power chords, and it feels like Whisper Supremacy. But the self-referential bits are what really fuck it up for me. Not a lot of people nobody has pointed this out, but the album closes in the same exact way that the last one does. They bring back the theme from the last record's outro as this record's outro, and I like tying records together. I like the idea of having a grandiose concept, but it's just tacked on in this one. It was tacked on in the last one, and I don't know what story it's telling. I don't know what they're trying to do with it, aside from saying, we have a basket of ideas that we would like to show you again. And that's what the band is. You're going to hear parts on this record that sound like the riff in Phobophile. And there's one part that sounds like Crown of Horns. And they've done that before. They've sampled their own material. They've sampled their own samples in the modern records. And that's what AI is going to do. It's going to just give you the bullet points and just spit it back at you and be like, hey, remember, we used to do this. We still kind of do that, but do you remember? But a lot of people are listening to the record and seeing that it's fast, seeing it's aggressive, seeing that it's very polished, and that gives it the high score. But you're missing the soul. None of the riffs on this record have soul. And when they kind of give a glimpse as to what kind of humanity spurned the idea behind it, it's very infantile. Like, there's nothing about Donaldson's like tonal palette that does anything for me. Even though he's trying to do the Cryptopsy thing, he's not writing with the interval concept in mind for how different notes have colors to them. Every single riff on this record has the same emotive value. It all has the same like grayish coloring to it. There's nothing that changes. Any of the riffs, even if they explore a theme, any of the riffs carry the same like emotional vibe to it in any of the songs. So, and I get it, if you want to just harness everything towards aggression, you want to just make everything up to 11, that creates wallpaper music. But it also creates a statement. But there's been plenty of bands that have done overly aggressive records for a reason as a statement, like Deicide's Legion, where the songcraft is still there. It's not there here. So this is just an auto-compiling band that has run out of things to say, so they're going to take the superficial elements that they're known for and focus on that, because the soul of the band is completely gone. And I don't think you're going to hear anybody else explore that in their reviews of this record, because it's going to come off as shaking off any of the doldrums of previous releases by being so fast and being so aggressive. But it really feels to me just like any modern deathcore record. And I'm trying to tune the singer out, because he's a deathcore singer trying to make this band fake its way through appearing as a modern death metal band, and it just does not work. I get that he's talented. I do not like anything he does. I do not like anything Kristen Donaldson does. But they're creating a service. They're trying to give you the fastest, most aggressive, most technical shit that they can. And that's not a good enough message. So that's what I have to say about the new Cryptopsy record. Thanks for listening.